Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Freestyle Talks. This is Carlos Osvaldo from Maputo in Mozambique. We are here. It's a beautiful Sunday in Mozambique, October 18, 2020. We are expected to have a very special guest joining us. So we had this call initially booked for Friday, and then we rescheduled for Saturday. But finally, we are able to make it here on Monday. So we are very apart. I'm in Mozambique, and my guest is in Peru, in South America. Mozambique is in Africa. We are separated by 7 hours. And the topic we bring today is actually a very powerful challenge and a statement in these days. Dare to love. So the reason I invited my guest is because we are living in such an immediate society these days that we can have access to anything, to any information, to any immediate sensation. And sometimes I think we can get lost in the middle of all that. We can get lost in who we are. We can get lost in what's really important and what's really valuable in life. So when I saw our guest, I thought it would be really relevant and timeless to have this conversation right now in this moment, still living COVID crisis all around the world. So Nalaya is my guest, Nalaya Chakana. I believe I'm saying her name in the right way, and she's already with us. So let me bring her to the studio. Just 1 minute. Nalaya, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much. And thank you for your patience. We had some technical issues in the morning.
So I'm really happy. I'm really excited. I'm really excited for this conversation. And let me start by thanking you for you making time to be here and to have this conversation with me and my audience. Because I'm really fascinated first by your work and curious to know and to learn more about what you do and the meaning of your purpose and your mission in life, you know. And it's really out of a curiosity, and I'm really eager to get to discover more about your life, your work, and about you as a person, because I have a feeling of a lot of mystery around you and transformation as well, because you are from Netherlands and you are in Peru and you are an intimacy life coach. So I see a lot of interesting points to talk and to get to know about you. I just want to also invite people who are watching, if you want to join us and comment, you can use your chat either by YouTube or Facebook. So feel free to join us, send us questions or comments. So it's not about Carlos and Nalaya, it's all of us. Okay. So Nalaya, let me start with the first question. Who are you? Not about work, but about who are you as a person? Who are you as a woman? And tell me about your life and from those days in Germany, in Netherlands, sorry, to where you are now, please.
Okay. Yes, I like that you start with a personal question. So yeah, I was born in the Netherlands with a Dutch family. Like my entire heritage comes from Holland, but somehow I was brought up in various countries. No, so I was raised for the first 6 years in Switzerland. We moved back to Holland. We went to the United States, Holland, England, and by the time I reached the end of the end of high school, I really felt like, okay, I have to spread my wings and discover more. So I did part of university in Australia and then in Canada. And somehow all of this unfolded and guided me to India, where I lived for 5 years. And then India guided me to Peru. So as you can hear, there's just been a lot of yeah, a lot of travel, a lot of different languages, a lot of different cultures that all have been part of shaping me. And I think that that's why it was important for me when I went to university to not be in Holland, even though I cherish and I honor my ancestors, and I love, you know, that I am from there and that I carry an aspect of Dutchness in me. However, I don't fit 100% in that culture, you know? And so for me, it was important to really discover more of my essence, my inner culture, my language, which is why I flew to various countries. And I think especially India and Peru really gave me that liberty. I'm not quite sure how I can explain it. It's more like a feeling, no? Of yeah, I guess for India, you could say that no matter how long someone can live there as a foreigner, you would never be able to fully integrate into the Indian culture, if that makes sense. So somehow that gives the space to absorb what you feel inspired by, whilst really expanding in who you are. And then here in Peru, perhaps it's the same, no? It's like these very rich cultures with ancient tradition that are very connected to prayer and you know, interpreting the godly in whatever way they want to interpret it. That really sparks something in me, even though it can never 100% be mine. It like has added to me feeling more free, to deepen my connection to my path of purpose, and also to just be free in expressing the uniqueness of who I am. Because being raised all over the world is like, yeah, I kind of fit everywhere and somehow nowhere at the same time.
No, I totally get it. And I actually wanted to ask you about roots, about especially on teenage years. Uh, was it difficult to travel around, or do you always felt it was a part of your way of living? So it became natural to you because you were so used to do that? Or do you ever felt like, I don't belong here, I don't actually belong anywhere, so maybe I belong only to myself? How did you manage that as a teenage girl?
Yeah. Wow, I love your personal questions. Is yeah, really great. Yeah. Um, I think that regardless of our upbringing, it always comes with a strength and it comes with a challenge, right? And funny enough, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday about this exact topic. Like, I've met people who've grown up in one house, in literally one street, no, in one country, and I have no idea what that must be like. And somehow, when if I were to put that like you know, in comparison to me, we would probably have opposing strengths and opposing weaknesses, if you want to see it like that. So in my first memories, I can see that as a child, I was convinced that everyone was living the way that we were living. Like, I was convinced that everyone traveled around, everyone needed to learn new languages, everyone, you know, it's like that's the child interpretation of like how I see reality must be what reality is like. So the strength is that I saw the world from a very young age as borderless, like there's no borders, there's no separation, all is interconnected, and I am adaptable. Like I can be anywhere. And as for like the child perception, I would say, because I have a brother and a sister who are older than me, I would say we were very lucky, no? Because it's quite easy to become the black sheep, like, oh, the foreign children. But somehow being foreign made us more popular. So we were very accepted in the different countries that we lived in. But you're right, teenage years made it a little bit more difficult, no? Because teenage years is like the time that you want to belong. And this is in the beginning of the teenage years, we were in England. And then the last years of high school, we went to Holland. And that's the moment where I saw I was trying to squeeze myself into some kind of shape to just force myself to fit in. And that was the time I kept changing my hair color. I kept changing my hair, the way I was dressing, just to kind of make me fit, until I reached a moment where I saw that I can't fit here and I don't want to fit here. And that's when I went to Australia, basically, in the beginning of university. And that really flipped my perception, and it really allowed me to start stripping away the things that didn't belong to me. And in a way, you could say I was a master in letting go. And so as I stepped onto my spiritual path, by the age of 19. This happened when I lived in Montreal in Canada. No, sorry, 19 was when I was in Australia, 21 in Canada. That's really where it took off, no? Like my spiritual path of being more conscious of how I maneuver myself and what changes I want to make. That's really when I started moving more towards what does it require for me to truly be at home, or to deepen my relationships, or to reveal more of myself. And so now I'm 32, and I would say, like, yeah, every step I've taken in relationships, in friendships, in myself, in the places that I've chosen to create home, it's all been for deepening those roots. Roots within myself, my connection to my heritage, but also the choice. For example, even though I've been in Peru for 5 years, it's been 3 years that I'm settled, no? Because before that, I was still traveling quite a bit, and also being in Colombia and Ecuador. But for 3 years, quite permanent, and also choosing to almost not leave this country. So I only went on holiday once to see my family for Christmas, and once last year to go to the beach in Mexico. But in those 3 years, like, choosing to not look for distractions, to not leave, but really be here. And that's been really a medicine, no, for me. And looking at those people who've never moved, it's almost like we would need the opposing medicine. They would probably need to detach, and I would need to get more attached.
I understand. And which area you studied on university?
Communication.
Communications. Okay, so I see a connection with what you are doing actually right now. So you told me about the importance of India in your life, in your self-discovery. What really hit you the most about the Indian culture, and how did it had an impact on your life? If you can go deeper into that experience and that journey.
Yeah. I really love India. I really love India.
I've never been there.
For everything that it represents. I mean, when the calling came, it basically came because I started doing yoga. I heard different stories, and I just wanted to go. But I really went with a leap of faith. Like, I didn't Google anything about India. Like, I didn't want to receive information before experiencing it. I didn't even know how the climate would change throughout the year. I just dumped myself in Delhi, and I figured I would come across someone pointing me in the north or the south direction, and just taking it step by step. So India is filled with, that godly connection that I mentioned, no? So I love Hinduism because it's almost like the godly face has various forms of interpretation. And so it's almost like, divinity, you can find it, and it will be represented in all of these various expressions, as opposed to having one God. So that's one thing that attracted me. And then, because the way that I see the godly essence, it's like I don't see myself as religious per se, but definitely in the spiritual sense of, like, encountering that sense of connection and that sense of power, no, which ultimately is from within. So when I look at religious traditions or ancient traditions of prayer and ritual, essentially it is all to awaken that connection from within and know that you can manifest whatever it is that you want. So I'm attracted to that because I love these moments of prayer, which for me is simply a moment of being connected, no, to the present, because I see every thought as a prayer, and a prayer is nothing more than a conscious thought. And so living in a country where there's prayer in the morning, prayer in the evening, it does something to the consciousness. And there's a lot of beauty, like the way the women dress, or the way that they dress up the temples. And there's also a lot of chaos, and there's sickness, and there's poverty, and there's death, and it's in your face. And I think that when people are attracted to go to India, it is to, like, there's no way you can't transform. It's like it'll forever shift something in your perception of reality. And as for me, there were various things that needed to heal within me, which I wasn't aware of before I went. But when I went, it became really clear, no? So it had a lot to do around my sexuality and my sensitivity, and things that I had basically pushed away, no? And so the first years were quite confronting because the energy is quite strong. So it will just bring up to the surface whatever needs to be looked at. And somehow it also, through that healing process, pushed me into my path of purpose. So in a way, you could say that I wasn't even looking for my purpose, but somehow it arrived through the deep process that I needed to go through in my own life to actually shed myself from, yeah, like I said, the cultures that, or the imprints that didn't belong to me, but then also the blockages that were preventing me from really embodying my power, which have everything to do with sexuality, connection, and very much sensitivity. And so I did various trainings and studies. And if you ask me, like, what is the essence that I still carry from India, it's definitely inspired by the tantric path that I was on. And I want to clarify that it wasn't per se an over-sexualized tantric path, because there's many streams right now present in the world. And some of these interpretations of the origin of Tantra have been over-sexualized because in the West that works better, or like people are interested in that. Whereas my path was more connected to like how to use this energy for healing purposes, no? Which any technique that we use, we can use them for healing, for creation, or for pleasure, or together. But for me, it was really about just understanding the power of this energy, how to maneuver it, and later on also implementing it in the sexual form. So when I look at my work, it's really like, yeah, the sexual aspect of Tantra and intimacy is part of what I look at. But I reckon if we put focus only on the sexual part, we often overlook where the true blockage of intimacy is located. So I like looking at all the layers of intimacy to then kind of form a holistic view of like, where's the out of balance? Where's the power hidden? Where are you blocking yourself from getting where you truly want to be?
Mhm. I've worked at an embassy in Mozambique, a foreign embassy, and I was actually working with the ambassador at that time, and she had small kids. You know, I think it was 9, 7, and 5, 3 boys. And she used to tell me that the way of living, or of jumping around countries and changing continents and changing environments, her kids were really good at adapting. So it was really easy to change and to learn new languages, to immerse in new cultures. They felt comfortable doing that. But there was always a layer of intimacy, and they were not comfortable letting people in their lives, in their feelings, on trusting, because when they settle at a school, imagine here in Maputo, and when they finally start to develop bonds and connections and make friendships, it was maybe time to move on to a different city, a different place. So they had to lose people, and so they kind of grew, not letting people in. Uh, I'm trying to see if, in your case, it's also related to maybe that way of growing up, of being around, uh, having a shield on not letting people really truly in into your life and your feelings, as a way to prevent getting hurt or getting exposed. And do you ever felt that way?
Yeah, definitely. And you're right, no? Like, because of my upbringing as well as other experiences I've had in life has very much shaped what my purpose is, to be able to see like all the ways that I was blocking myself from true connection when that true connection was really my desire. Um, so I do feel blessed that I stepped onto my spiritual path really quite young, in an honest way, no? Because like you say, one of the first imprints I received as a child was literally, anyone you get close to, you have to let go of. Like, anyone you love will eventually disappear. And I think as a child initially, because even when I think of Switzerland, no, it's like I was so young, from literally 4 weeks old to 6 years old. um, it's like you don't think about it when you move away. But I think only later would I have grasped it, like, wow, okay, so these people I will never see again. And that continued to happen and happen and happen. And I think it only really kind of caught on when I was in high school, no? And especially when I look at my brother and sister, it's almost like my brother and sister went one direction, which was choosing a place, choosing the friendships and staying there, and kind of trying to solidify it as also a way of protecting, right? Whereas me, I went in the extreme opposite, like run away, fly away, escape. And sometimes I do believe it's good to escape and run away, especially when we're young. But there has to be a moment where we take responsibility for that act and admit that part of it was running away. And I tried to run away from everything, including myself. And so what you say, like, for sure, I've had these protection mechanisms of, for example, I had a pattern of always being the one to end the relationship, because that is almost like an echo of my childhood, being the one to leave, being the one to leave, being the one to leave. And so me moving towards, like, I want to root, I want to create home, I want to be like in that simplicity of life, which eventually brought me to Peru, was my intention. But I had things to like work through in order to be really ready for that, no, to be able to be here the way that I am, and rooted and grounded and deepening those relationships. Because in the time I was in India, I was quite nomadic, no, I was moving quite a bit. So even though it was 5 years, and even though I would go back to certain places that I called home, there was a lot of movement. And that made it easy, because even though I saw the same people in the same places every year, and I kept deepening those relationships, it was still with a limitation. And I would say that when I came to Peru is the moment that all of that started to deepen, and deepen, therefore, my path of purpose, and deepen the way that I'm able to teach. Because somehow my life has been quite extreme, no? And so when I look at my clients that I attract, I can relate to them, even though their experiences may not be as extreme, or their protection mechanisms, or maybe they have similar protection mechanisms, but coming from different reasons. It's like, that's what allows me to have, to be able to relate and to understand, like, how do we step out of that? No, because it comes from a decision, it comes from breaking habits, and it comes from determination to embody something that previously hasn't been experienced, no? So like for me to root here in my mature life, it literally felt like the first time.
And take me back to the moment you started to feel like leaving India. And why Peru?
Well, the way that I see it is almost like, if you see the chakra system, I see India as like the heart chakra and above. And I see Peru as the heart chakra and down into the earth. So
Explain
in India,
me that. Yes.
yes.
The chakra system.
So in India, the nature is disrespected and is obvious. There's the rivers are polluted. You'll encounter trash anywhere. When you're sitting in the train, someone might be eating their lunch and they will throw out the plastic tray out of the window. Like, it's just part of the culture, right? There's probably more movements now, even in the time that I was there, there's more movements towards green consciousness, but it's not in the culture. And even when you look at the way that the rituals are being performed, or even when you look at the tantric path, the yogic path, the meditation path, all of it is quite invisible. That's how I interpret it, no? To the invisible realm, the energetic realm, how to move energy, etc. All of that, no? And it really helped me understand this aspect of prayer and connection to the universe. But it was almost like it was too much. Like I felt like I was just not in my body, not grounded. And I can't say that everyone going to India will have that experience. I think this is very particular for me. Also because of my background, but also I connect very strongly with the air element. And I just felt like I need embodiment. I need to be in my body. I need to ground. And already when I was in India, I was connecting to plant medicine and connecting, with different people who'd been to South America, or South American friends who basically just kept hinting that they felt I would fit in really well here. But then it took me another year to actually make that decision. And I'm really happy because that final year that I was in India really gave me a particular completion to feel ready to come to Peru. And from the moment I came to Peru, because the tradition here is all about the earth, no? It's like the mountains where we live are the sacred beings. The offerings are made in sacred places on the earth because of what this mountain represents, or this lake, or it's literally the opposite. And I feel like that is really what I needed to like encounter the power here, literally here, no, in the elements. And so sorry, I lost my.
No, it's not a problem. It's just a conversation, so it's not linked to rigorous questions. So let's keep talking. When you decided to go to Peru, did you did any research at this time to find a place, to choose a city, to Google something first, or it was in the same type of adventures as it was in India?
Pretty much the same.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
I once upon a time took the decision to no longer research online and to just travel like that. And when I say just travel like that, there is somewhat of an influence of stories that I hear. So I knew of the Sacred Valley, but when I came to Peru, I first stayed in Cusco, and the first trip I made was to Lake Titicaca, because I just heard such magical stories of this lake. So I went there, and it was almost like there I got the sense of like I have to come to Pisac, and there's something here to find that will just help me click things into place. So it's like semi-intuitive, connecting, listening, and remembering the stories of what other people told me. So yeah, just following feeling, basically. No?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in the first moment you arrived in Peru, take me back to that moment when you got there. The first impression, was it the first time visiting Peru, or have you ever passed by Peru before, or it was really first time? And how it was the first feeling, first sensation, first emotions?
Yeah, I mean, it was a feeling of home is what I remember. Even in like the smelly airport of Lima, which is sea level, no? Like the capital city is at sea level, and here we are at high altitude. So I live, for example, at 3,000 meters. So even in Lima, like the first breath I took, I felt like home. It's hard to explain. I had the same sense when I was in Delhi. Yeah, so it doesn't matter how polluted and how bleh. It's like when you're meant to be somewhere, you would feel that, no? And my intention was to come and live here. So when I came, even though I didn't settle immediately, I didn't leave South America for the first 2 years, no? Like first time I went back to see my family in Holland was after 2 years. In those 2 years, I did travel a little bit. Like I fell in love with Colombia and went to Colombia, those kind of things. But yeah, it was a sense of home. I flew to Cusco straight on from Lima. And like I said, it's high altitude. And Cusco is even a little bit higher than Pisac, no? And there's all these stories of like acclimatizing to altitude and this and that and be careful. But for some reason, it was almost like it grounded me more to be at altitude, and it gave me more energy. And it just, I don't know, it's hard to explain. But it was a sense of aliveness that really made me feel like this is where I'm meant to be. Yeah.
And when did you started to feel this is my work, this is my mission, this is what I have to do to help others? How did you went from your individual process of learning and becoming who you were meant to be, and to decipher your own experience and emotions to take a step to let me help others, let me dedicate myself to improve and to help other people?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really a decision. I think it actually kind of was intertwined from the beginning. So when I look at like the deepest, darkest places that I needed to go through in the beginning of India, it was almost like every step, every discovery, naturally I attracted people who were looking for those answers. And so if I were to link that to certain experiences I was having as a teenager, for example, what I saw as a teenager is that I have a natural way of seeing people or being able to interconnect things that perhaps lie in their blind spots. So as a teenager, I was really fascinated by that. No, like I was able to interpret people's connections and stories and ways of relating without ever needing to meet the other person, for example. Like someone would tell me a story. So as a teenager, I was really attracted to that. And I saw that I naturally attracted people who wanted to move through things. But I think when I started to become more serious about my own life and how I needed to move through things myself, I became more aware of like how to balance that, no? Because it's easy for highly sensitive people who hold these answers to attract too much and lose too much of their energy for the benefit of others. And so the first steps were really about how to balance that, how to be honest about where I'm at and honest about what I can share, but also needing to move with that natural attraction. No, it's not like I can just deny that these people naturally are navigating to me in the moment that I carry those messages. And so slowly that started to like unfold. And in the beginning, it was only work for women around sexuality, intimacy, and anything to do with like the fertility, the menstrual cycle and hormonal alignment, because I had issues around my womb, no, that I needed to work through. So initially it was all for women, and that made it really comfortable, no, because there's an intimacy between women that is very different. And I think after 7-8 years, that journey of slowly allowing my purpose to unfold naturally, it raised questions of like, where have I seen the most transformation occur without trying, no? And therefore, what is my specialty? And therefore, what can I strip away and just keep that focus? And all of that stripping away happened 2 years ago when I said, okay, I want to also work with men. And therefore I needed to delete all the courses I had created for women, all the products I had created just for women, because I said, if I want to work with men, anything I offer has to be equal. And I started looking at all the retreats I'd hosted, all the circles, all the individual sessions. And what really stood out were interpersonal relations, mostly ancestral and mostly past relationships, no? And how these imprints sometimes cause for us to be stuck in patterns that are not serving us and that are actually blocking the heart from opening up again. And so the more I have started to specialize, the more quicker, more efficient shifts have I seen in my work, and the more passionate I feel in regards to that, no? So it's like it's been a natural unfolding. It's hard to say because I was obviously very young when I went to India. I was 22. And it's an age where you want to give yourself the space to just live life and be busy with whatever you need to feel happy. So I can't say I was looking for my purpose. It just happened.
Mm-hmm. You are an intimacy life coach, right? That's your official job title. What does an intimacy life coach does for people who are not familiar with the term?
So I think I can explain it best by sharing like my mythology, because so Chakana, which is the last name I have chosen to integrate an aspect of Peru. The Chakana here is a sacred symbol that is, I mean, there's books written about this symbol. Somehow they say it's the explanation of the universe. And it's based on the Southern Cross star constellation. But it almost looks like a cross. And so it represents the four elements, the 4 directions. And the way that I've integrated that or fused it with the tantric understanding is to look at intimacy from the perspective of earth, air, fire, and water. So how do we bring this understanding of intimacy in a tangible understanding? Because sometimes when I look at these ancient teachings coming from tantra or the yogic tradition or anything coming from India, it's like, yeah, but how can I feel it, taste it? How can I integrate it in the daily? Like, what I'm interested in is, how is this benefiting me here, now, like in this life with the connections I have here? And so I like using the elements because everyone's familiar with the elements and everyone can understand how we express intimacy differently from earth, which is more the physical relation, or the sense of home or belonging, or belonging in your family, in your community, sense of knowing yourself, being healthy and empowered and strong in your body, and how that serves you in all of your connections, no? And then air is more, how you listen, how you speak, how your words are the bridge to allowing deeper, intimate connection, and to allow that vulnerable, authentic exposure of yourself. Air obviously also is intuition and all of these things. Fire is more the sexual nature, but it's also touch, how you allow yourself to be touched in your heart. Basically what you asked me, like, how was I previously preventing others to literally touch me, but like inside. And then water is the emotion, to find that trust in the intelligence of allowing yourself to feel everything. And that is also very much part of intimacy, because it's like when we cut ourselves off from certain feelings, some people somehow get stuck in let's say darkness, like they're more comfortable suffering and cycling back to depression. I have a history of depression as well. It's like somehow the comfort is there because it's the known. And so sometimes we resist feeling the pleasure or the beauty or the expansion or the confidence and the trust and the love and all the things that we claim we want, no? Or sometimes it's reversed. We put on a mask of being happy, and then we feel this resistance of connecting more deeply, or afraid to be supported or let others in or whatever. And we suppress those feelings and push ourselves to top things up with light. But the whole spectrum of water, the whole spectrum of emotion is essentially what connects us more deeply within, and therefore how we connect with others. And so I like using these elements because it just makes it tangible. So when you ask me what is an intimacy life coach, I attached the aspect of life coach because I think that often intimacy is misinterpreted. People think it is only directed at people in a relationship, or it's only directed at the sexual aspect of life. And so I attached the understanding of life coaching because it is literally about how to feel whole in life. And intimacy for me is the glue that connects everything. Intimacy is how intimately I am connected to myself, my body, my health, my purpose, my friendships, the place I call home, my family members, my beloved, my sexuality. Like, it comes down to everything, no? And so my focus of my work is actually more for singles, not so much like sometimes I work with people in a couple, no? And I really like that as well. I don't make exceptions, but I like specializing for people who are single, who are somehow trapped in a cycle of perhaps repeating the same love story, but with different people, or repeating the same patterns coming out and not being sure how to break that. And that often has a connection to either a past experience in relationship or something to do with cultural heritage or upbringing or the relationship with the mother or the father, no? So how to clear that and how to then basically dare to love, no? Which is the title that you used for this interview. So
Yes.
yeah, intimacy.
Mm-hmm. And in a practical way, how does someone knows I should learn more about intimacy? I should consult an intimacy life coach. How does a single man or a single woman gets to know that's what I'm missing? It's because what are the doubts, symptoms? What are people living or feeling previously to consulting you? And how do people make a separation between I need a common doctor or a common therapy into I need an intimacy life coach?
Yes. I mean, different people are attracted to my work for different reasons. I'll give you a few reasons. So right now I'm doing the course, excuse me, I'm doing the course that is called Dare to Love. So it's an 8-week life journey, you know? And if I look at that group, it's like there's various people that have been in a marriage and needed to go through divorce. And so I reckon that whether it's an actual divorce or a long-term relationship that ended, it is filled with particular patterns, right? And what I see is that the imprint of the pain of losing love is the reason why people then like unknowingly choose to shut down their heart. So it's not like we are afraid of loving again. We are afraid of loving again and then potentially needing to go through a difficult breakup or a painful breakup, such as a divorce. No, I'm just symbolizing divorce, but I think many people can relate to this regardless of the fact whether they have been married or not. And so what I attract is people who see that somehow they're either shut down and therefore not attracting anything. So they've been single for a long time, and what they attract either just seems like it's not worthy, or they step into it by lowering their standards and get disappointed, which again then encourages to not open up more, right? So that's the cycle. Or they end up repeating a particular pattern. So for example, being in a relationship where they mother their partner, or where somehow they attract emotionally unavailable partners, or something that just seems like self-sabotaging. And it comes from that shutting down of the heart. No, I also attract people who have a particular trauma with either the abandonment of their mother or their father, and that imprint seems to be really quite big. No, so either the father left or the mother left, or one of the parents died, or like this kind of imprint comes down to the same thing that I just said. It's not about fear of loving, it's about fear of losing love once you have it. So whether that imprint comes from something in childhood, or in my case was the same, no, losing love, losing my friends as a child. And so, or it can be a bad experience like a marriage that failed and then feeling like a failure. And so it's literally around, okay, how can we truly clear the past? Like clear those experiences, because whenever you speak about an experience of the past, of whatever kind, if there is still an emotional charge of whatever kind, it means that you haven't yet processed and integrated it fully. So whenever there's an emotional charge, it means that that event is influencing where you're at in the present moment. And so that can create all kinds of barriers against love, basically. And so what we do in journeys like that, in practicality, is look at the entire spectrum, no? Look at family, look at relationships of the past, but also look at friendships in the current present, to see like, how can I improve my honesty? How can I improve my vulnerability? By practicing literally with the friends that I care for, so that I start growing in that resonance, so that if I want to attract a partner, that resonance is already evident in the way that I live life and how deeply and authentically I interact with my friends. So that's kind of like the practicality that you're talking about. But the fact that I do integrate aspects from India and Peru, I like mixing it up with tantric practices, I like mixing it up with shamanic rituals. When you ask me the question, like, who would be attracted to that, would be someone who has that curiosity, you know, like, how can I be empowered by my sexuality? How can I use a force that is just with me every step I take, every breath I take, but in a way that actually empowers me in my healing? This is something that a psychologist wouldn't offer, you know? And I have no judgment over other clinical therapies, because I do believe that everyone is attracted to the thing that they need. I do, however, sometimes when I hear stories, I feel like it's a little one-sided. And so sometimes when integrating the four elements, it's like nothing is overlooked, because in every ancient tradition we use the elements to have a holistic understanding of life and existence. And so, yeah, people come for different reasons, but there has to be an open-mindedness, no, to like to be empowered through what I see as like the main powers that we have been gifted with as human beings, which is sexuality and the four elements.
And this process, these journeys, are they mostly in groups, in classes, or it's more individual or mixed?
Both.
Both. Okay.
See, I mean, in the past, I also was doing annual retreats, but that cannot happen because of the corona. But funny enough, I didn't plan a retreat this year. This was the first year I actually wanted to experiment more online with groups, and is really beautiful what I see. I like going really deep with people, no? So like the Dare to Love course is 8 weeks. Usually the one-on-one is 4 months, because we take one element per month, and we go slow but consecutive, no? It's not like every week a session, but rather like take space for integration and then we move on. But yeah, both is there. I do have some plans for the future. Like I want to make a membership site to offer different courses and keep feeding courses, that it's just like an endless source of things that people can continue to learn and integrate. Because I see there's a power in group. There's a different power in group than there is in individual, no? Like obviously when it's individual, I can be more personal, and we can really go into the most intricate details of what is going on in a person's life and really adjust what they need to focus on. However, in a group, I see like it's the stories of everyone present, their stories, their vulnerability, their insight, their wisdom, that shapes a power that I just love so much. I feel like we co-create together, even though I'm the one creating the structure of it's like, no, we all contribute to that power. Yeah.
And the power of sharing, right? And feeling a sense of belonging, and getting to know what I'm feeling and my fears. That person also has the same things. So I'm normal. I can relate and feel comfortable.
Exactamente. Sí.
Thank you. And those groups are men and women, or you have separated?
No, it's men and women. Everything I do is both together. Okay. Yeah.
And so, what as a client, when I sign up, what do I get in the end of the process? What are the main changes? Are me feeling more in connection with myself? It's me knowing how to really feeling empowered, or it's just a beginning of a journey that I need to carry on during my life. It's just a first step, getting a direction, or do you actually have a feeling that people really see changes during the 8 weeks?
Yeah. I've actually been really surprised now to see the transformations that I've seen. And I'm able to, like, this is the second time I do Dare to Love. And in the first time, there were maybe half of the people that entered that journey with the group were people that I had worked with over the years individually. And yet I was able to see certain transformations click into place that previously I hadn't seen. And so when you ask me, like, yes, the transformation is tangibly, visibly there. Yeah, it's mostly confidence and trust. So if you ask me, what do people walk away with? Confidence and trust. Because we really like want to unravel, where are the limited beliefs hidden? How can we really release them? Because often we are aware of like, oh yeah, for example, I'm not open to receiving support. or a limiting belief of like, oh, I don't believe that I am worthy of being loved in the way that I have seen around me, or the type of relationship that my friend has, or whatever I see in a Hollywood movie. That might be a limited belief of like, oh, I don't know if I'm worthy of that. I don't know if it really exists, even though it's the thing that I long for. So it's like how to make that journey of like going deep into the darkness, because Dare to Love is it's 8 weeks, so 4 weeks of darkness and then 4 weeks of light. And to find that comfort in the darkness of allowing yourself to go into the places that you don't usually allow yourself to go, in like these limited beliefs or these blockages that we create, or the negative experiences that we are still attached to that create fear of opening up, etc. And then to shed all of that, and to, even in the last week of darkness, I created a death meditation to connect with death as a way of activating more life, or lust for life, or empowerment and confidence to say, okay, if this were my the day that I die, but I get a second chance, how would I step into life with more force, with more confidence, with more trust? And then the latter weeks of light are all about new vision, breaking patterns, doing things differently, taking inspired action, and learning what it requires to be open to receive. Because it's not all about doing. It's also about having that trust of what you are attracting is what you deserve, no? So when confidence, it's like, yeah, and trust, it's just like, yeah. It's hard to describe, but when I look at the transformations I've seen these people let go of things that don't serve them, whether it is in friendships that were out of balance, or when it comes to particular patterns in behavior where, for example, they're always there supporting the other, they're always there to listen to them, but they're less likely to open up or receive that in a mutual way. It basically just comes down to respect and recognizing the almost like prioritizing yourself in the way that they might prioritize others, no? So it's that honoring of self-respect, self-love, recognizing your qualities, what you carry, what you have to offer, that changes the quality of existing friendships, and therefore it changes what people are able to attract into their lives.
Mm-hmm. The death element is an influence of Peru and Peruvian culture, right?
Death.
Yes.
I would say
because
no.
No, because I understood that you spoke about Muerte, right, as a part of the therapy, and I have an impression, maybe I'm wrong, that South American culture, especially Peru and other countries around that area, see that in a different way, as a spiritual rich element of life. So I saw that element being that influence of that culture also present in that step in your process.
Yes, when you look at like the ancient tradition of the Andes, yes, is part of it. But if you look at like the more general way of living of the Peruvians, I would say less, no? Because there's a lot of influence from the church, from Catholicism. Whereas if I were to link it to India, it's like, the belief of reincarnation. Death is celebrated, like people dress in white and not in black at a funeral. They even have a place in Varanasi where a lot of people want to either die or be burned. So there's a lot of connection to death. Whereas here, when I heard you speak, I was actually thinking of Mexico, because they have the Day of the Dead, no? And is the day that they celebrate and even paint their faces as skulls, and make big altars for their ancestors to honor the lineage that they're connected to. And these kind of details you would see less here in Peru and in certain South American cultures. But from the original culture, yes, it is obviously part of the understanding of life and death, and the honoring, no, of the lineage. But when I look at my course, I think it's more inspired by India. Yeah.
Great. And tell me about, as a copywriter, I'm fascinated by your that wording, "Dare to Love." I think it's just really powerful and a great headline. So congratulations on that. And I
Gracias.
see a communications elements clearly present there. One thing, just sorry, my phone was ringing. It's off now. But one thing I wanted to ask you is why that naming and why that sentence?
Yeah, I mean, when I explained to you that I wasn't looking for my purpose in the form that it shaped itself, it was a time I was sure I was going to be a writer. So
Communications.
exactly, I have a thing with words, no, and languages, and like bridging the meaning of the root of words, and seeing how different languages say things and expressions. Like, it fascinates me. So where Dare to Love came from, sometimes these things happen when I least think about it. So even I have a group on Facebook that is called Make Love to Life, and I'm about to set up what do you call it? A podcast channel that also is called Make Love to Life. And it's just, I find meaning in these kind of phrases that happen to be catchy, but somehow the depth of it is really the heart of the teachings, no? So Dare to Love comes from having had experiences in love that were really difficult, both the relationship and coming out of it, and realizing that those experiences were not to discourage me, but they were to encourage me, no? And so the quest has become, how do I dare to trust more after coming out of an abusive relationship, or a difficult relationship, or a manipulative relationship, or having, whatever kind of experience? How do we step out of that and actually trust more than how we trusted before this destructive relationship? And that has been my journey of, like, knowing I'm the creator of my life, knowing I attracted everything I needed in order to gain the wisdom I have today, in a way that actually allows me to expand as opposed to contract. And so what I explained before about Dare to Love, it's like, yeah, I attract the people who, for whatever reason, have chosen consciously or unconsciously to contract, and who want to understand how to expand instead. And so Dare to Love, I really love, because to dare means to have the courage, no? And
And the
courage,
power. Mhm.
yeah, the word courage comes from cor in Latin, which is connected to corazon. And it's all about, like, courage is not about something that you think about. It has to come from the heart, and it's something that you cannot fake. And you have to take a step in the direction, knowing your fear, recognizing your fear, but going for it anyway, because the power of the heart is undefeatable, no? So it's really like, okay, let's dare to do that.
You have a question here. Let me put it on our screen. Is Nalaya your real name? And if not, does it have a special meaning?
Yes. I do consider Nalaya my real name. It is my spiritual initiation name. So my birth name is Nienke, a very Dutch name, which I also really love. No, in India they do have the tradition to give initiation names, and I received multiple, but I never felt called to change my name. No, because resonance obviously affects reality. But then Alaya came, and I sat internally, didn't share with anyone that this name had been received. And for about a year, I meditated on it, like, do I really want to embody this frequency? So eventually I did. And I chose to put the N of Nienke in front of Alaya, so Nalaya, to also honor my birth name, no? And to honor my roots. So Alaya is Sanskrit, and it the easiest translation would be home. So for example, Himalaya, the Alaya is there. Him means snow. So it basically represents the home of the snow, or the abode, no, of the snow. And so if you go deeper into Sanskrit, because Sanskrit is quite a complex language, it is not per se the home as we know it, as in like having a house, but rather the essence of existence that is part of everything that is alive. So it comes down to belonging. And alaya, the resonance of that suited me so well, because I have found home in places, in languages, in people. I've, energetically, I've experimented with all that home can represent, to eventually need to go into, having this little home here, like in the form of a house, and finding that rooted essence of home as well. And so I find it a really beautiful resonance, because it has been my life quest, and this sense of home, to find home within, home on earth, home in my beloved, home in all of that, no? So yes, alaya or nalaya is almost like the aspect of India that is in my purpose, and Chakana is the aspect of Peru that is in my purpose, the bridge between me.
And tell me about because you've been doing this for a while now, especially now in Peru, 8 years, if I'm correct. Have you seen a transformation, an increase, or a decrease of problems in intimacy in people around you in Peru, or even in other places? How do you see the evolution of intimacy issues around people? Because in a way, we have more tools to share and to be connected with social media, with these platforms, with access to information. But I'm wondering if that makes our lives easier in an intimacy related way, in sharing and getting really closer and connected to people and to ourselves, or in the opposite, it actually is an added barrier in how we connect with other people.
Yes, a little bit of both, no?
Mm.
If we use it correctly, it can actually help us be more connected. And I have written, but many of my teachings are almost like in the opposite direction. So, for example, I highly promote deleting dating apps. I've written article, like there's one article that's called Instant Love, in which I write about how everything is available in an instant. Any information, anything you want. You go on your first date and you feel like you already know the person because you saw their Facebook profile. Whereas if you look at, where are we? Like, let's say 20 years ago, it's a whole different story, because we actually took time to get to know someone and allow days to pass before seeing them again, and to allow, almost like a garden, for the garden to be watered, to receive light, to naturally grow. Whereas now I often feel that thinking that we already know so much about the person and how perfectly we supposedly fit, that puts pressure on it needing to be that, which ultimately causes it for it to not work out. No, so it's like, how is it that we have arrived in a place where we put so much pressure on love that ultimately, is a recipe for disaster? So what I teach a lot, I have one masterclass that is called Approach It Like a Virgin, which is literally like, how can we take things slow? How can we allow these aspects of intimacy to develop, to allow the trust to be felt in these different layers of intimacy before we express ourselves sexually, to allow sexuality to be the reflection of the trust that is already established. So approach it like a virgin. So now I feel like, oh yeah, I've seen your Instagram, I've seen your Facebook, I think I know you, I go on a date, everything needs to happen super fast, and these people then end up being stuck in a pattern where it's failed relationship, failed relationship, failed relationship, no? Because the expectations are high. So when you ask me about the evolution of intimacy, what I see is that the generation of our parents, the generation of the parents of our parents, was pretty simple. You marry the first person you fall in love with and you stay married. So regardless of whether they were really happy or somewhat happy or unhappy, there was a commitment that was there, which there's a beauty in that, right? Sometimes it's wrapped a little bit too much with obligation. So somehow it worked, but not always. And then we shifted to lack of commitment and too much freedom. I feel people give up too fast, give up on relationship before trying, before moving through the difficulty together. I feel people are looking to escape real commitments and wrapping it in an understanding of freedom. So there's a lot of like open relationship, polyamor. I'm sure this works for certain people, but most of what I've observed is people escaping depth and wrapping it in an idea of freedom. That's just how I see things. No, I might change my mind in the future, but my life journey has taken me to this point where I would like to bring both of these things together: how to be committed and ultimately feel free in that commitment. And so that's the shift that I feel we are moving towards, kind of learning from our ancestors who had perhaps too much commitment and obligation and lack of freedom, and then seeing, you know, from the hippie movement to where we are now, lack of commitment, too much freedom, and how to then balance that. So I would like to do actual research on this, like especially people born in the 80s, looking at, you know, we are a particular generation. What has influenced us to look for freedom in the wrong places, or looked for us to try to escape commitment, even though that's the thing that we desire, but not exactly the way that the parents did it. But like, you know, to kind of discover like, how are we, what does it require to bring them together, basically?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm also a part of that generation. So I feel really a part of that discussion and that problem. And it's mostly a dilemma of, my interpretation is that we are a generation that saw a lot of evolution and a transformation in society. So all of these internet and social media, all this happened in our lifetimes. So the world is changing really faster than in generations before us. And we are maybe the first generation who has to speed up and to catch up with so many changes in so little time. And they are happening through our teenage years and to our early uh, adult lives. So they are really shaping us as who we are and who we will be, and our jobs and how we study and how we interact, how we learn. So I think it's because we were born in a really specific timing.
See,
Yeah. And it's fascinating and scary at the same time.
yeah.
Yeah. So, Nalaya, you also said about a misinterpretation about tantra, especially in West civilization or culture. And I will give you my example. Okay, so I grew up in Portugal. So the first time I heard about tantra was clearly sexually related, totally. So it was an idea that tantra was a technique to make sex last longer.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my introduction to that word, and that it came from India. Uh, so it was like a mystic thing, but it was a technique that could help you last longer or make sex last longer. What is wrong and what is right about this? And take me a little bit on, and to people who are listening, to what really is tantra.
Yes, I'm just gonna get my plug in my computer because my battery is about to die.
Please do. Feel free. No problem. Stop being here. So whoever is watching, if you want to send us questions or comments, also feel free. We are here to discuss with you and to learn together. Or if you have any questions and curiosities, jump in. Welcome back.
Yes. I mean, what you said is true, very much. Yeah, I mean, it's tantra is definitely, there's a lot of techniques to just become more conscious, no? Of like, what is this energy? How can I direct it? How can I use it for my own benefit? So what I already pointed out, either for creation, for healing, or for obviously pleasure with a partner. They also see it as like the gateway to ultimately create a union, no? Like a pathway through sexual connection to the divine. And like you say, to last longer, or to be able to expand in the orgasmic experience longer without needing a peak orgasm to understand. Like it's all about expansion. No, I often talk about it as an energy that is infinite, because regardless of how long we are on the tantric path or whatever we think we already know, there's always more, and that's why it fascinates me. So you're right. Like, yes, there is an aspect that is very much sexual. I think I just like putting two things together, which is sensitivity and sexuality. And so, for example, when I was going through my own healing in India, there was no way I was going to step into an over-sexualized tantric school, because I was too sensitive. I was too open. Um, like I didn't feel attracted to being to studying and needing to do things with someone that perhaps I'm not attracted to, just to learn the techniques. Like, I don't feel attracted to that, no. But I know that that kind of sexual liberation has served many people, no, in allowing themselves to have those experiences with complete strangers, and perhaps making it easier to experience that. But the way that I like approaching it, for example, the retreats I was organizing here in Peru, I called them tantric lifestyle. So yes, we would go into sexual practices, and understanding of these techniques that are very much about the expansion of the orgasmic life force energy, and being able to direct it either for yourself, for your own life, or with a partner. So that would be part of it. But I called the retreat tantric lifestyle because it was really looking at, how is the tantric life force energy operating? How can I become aware of this on a daily basis, almost like in every breath that I take? And how can I integrate it into my lifestyle? So I told you before, my group is called Make Love to Life. And the reason for that is because I see life making love to itself with every breath we take. So it's almost like, yeah, the sun and the moon make love to the earth, and all the elements coming together. So it's like alchemy takes place. So who I am when I'm here alone is different than when my neighbor comes over and she and I start having a conversation. So you could see that as like a simple alchemy taking place, and depending, if it's a rainy day or a sunny day, it's going to affect our mood. It's also alchemy. I like seeing it as making love. So like, yeah, the way the weather is influencing me, or my neighbor who comes over, whatever mood she is in, whatever conversation we have, it's like, in essence, it's a tantric connection that is happening, and an alchemy that is taking place, that I like seeing as making love, because two energies coming together create a new energy. And so tantric lifestyle is like how to not separate that sensual experience of life, everything else that is supposedly non-sexual, with that sexual essence of tantra that seems to get the spotlight. So I see tantra as, you can also have a tantric experience that is non-sexual. So it's literally about just expanding and knowing that the energy is infinite, and connecting with that in this way. I don't know if this is clear enough.
It did. Thank you. I want to ask you also if it's possible, in your opinion, to have a relationship, a healthy relationship, in a couple, without good sexual element.
I don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know either. I don't know.
Because I haven't experienced that, where sometimes there's couples that if things go wrong, the sexual connection goes down also. I haven't had that experience. So, but I do work with couples who come to me for that reason. No, so either there's a shift in their relationship because they've been together long term, or they just got a child, which obviously puts them in a new position, like something in a transformation that somehow has an effect on their sexuality, and they do come to me for that. And what I usually do is I work with the couples individually to kind of do the individual work of like what needs to change in your life, and then do the work together with that couple. And it does actually seem that it is highly important to have a sexual healthy connection and to have that element be part, because like I said earlier when I talked about approach it like a virgin, it's like sexuality is the reflection of the love and the trust that is evident in all the other ways that you are connecting intimately with your partner. So if the sex falls off, I would say we have to look at all these ways that trust and security and intimacy are being expressed, because obviously something is out of balance that is affecting sexuality. If you want my personal opinion, I find it highly important, and I find it a very clear way of being guided and seeing where the connection is at with your partner, and to listen. So if the body doesn't want, or there's numbness, or the pleasure can't be experienced, or the lust for your partner is gone, it's like, yeah, pay attention, listen, and to not judge yourself and not judge the other, but to allow yourself to sense lack of attraction or lack of sensation, and listen, and then the sexual energy will guide.
And you also have the other type of relationships where the sexual element is actually amazing. It's quite good, but the relationship might not be healthy and complete and have other levels of intimacy. And maybe in those types, you can have great moments of pleasure, but
Sí,
it's not enough as well.
sí,
So yeah,
total.
it's really about maybe trying to combine those elements, you know.
Yeah,
They are a
exactly.
part of a healthy relationship. And Nalaya, another thing, do you think men and women, from your experience, men and women deal and see sexuality in different ways? So this is something, uh, let me tell you, I'm very curious to talk to you about this, because as a man, we often talk a lot about sex, men, between ourselves, uh, with friends, with best friends. So this is very important in our discussions. And I almost never have the same opportunity to ask this to a woman. So, uh, and as a professional, do you think that men and women deal with sex in different ways?
I love that you bring this up, because I think it's an illusion that men are more focused on sex. So before I answer this question, I want to say I really need to go, because I thought it was going to be an hour.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Let's finish. No, it's sorry. It's okay.
But this is the perfect question to finish with, because, like I said, I've done a lot of work with women, and um, I would say that the way that women talk amongst women about sex is more detailed, more intimate than what I understand the way that men are able to talk about sex with their brothers. I mean, I don't want to like generalize, but what I can say is that there is a sensual intimacy between sisters that is really quite intimate, no? Like around body, talking about bodies, showing things, touching, if something needs to be discovered, or like the detail that we describe of what is happening with our sexual partner, it's really quite intimate. And that's what I love around sisterhood. But me and my girlfriends, we sometimes joke that for us, sexuality is so much more important than what we see in certain men that we attract. Not all of them, no? Not the men I'm with, definitely not. But in that essence of like, yeah, there seems to be this stereotypical idea that men think more about sex or find it more important, when actually in the work that I've done, or the sisters that I talk with, it doesn't actually seem to be that way. So what I think is that we all bring each other in balance, no? So maybe whatever we attract into our reality, whatever our perception is what we have to look at. And maybe the way that certain women and certain men think about sex or how important they find it might be balanced. And then there's other people who don't find it that important, or you know what I mean? But sometimes the attraction happens in like the X form. So the woman who's highly sexual will attract the man who doesn't find that so important, and the man who's highly sexual will attract the woman. So it's like it the way I see it is it comes down to accepting how important it is to you and how important it is within the relationship, and to not compromise that. Because
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, and that's a great point of view, and of putting this in a very visual way at the same time. So I would like to also encourage people to follow you on Nalaya_Chakana on Instagram, and they can see a lot of your work and follow you up and catch up on what you are doing and what you are teaching. And I also want to thank you again for making the time and inspiring us and enlightening with a lot of your work and experience and your personal light. I think you are a person who is full of life and energy, and I can feel that, and I really admire that in you. And I always trust people who sell to others what they have personally experienced. And I know your journey led you to what you are teaching now. So I think it's real just because of that. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I will definitely put you in my newsletter and promote what you're doing here, because I'm attracted to people who really do things with passion and with authenticity. And your personal questions, I really like it more than needing to prove all the wisdom that we carry. It's like, no, let's go to the root of the experiences that brought us here. So thank you for reaching out, and it was super nice to meet you. I hope I get the opportunity to ask you some questions at another stage.
Whenever you want.
I'm also curious to see where you're at, and it's super nice.
So let's do a part 2.
See, yalla. It was really nice to connect with with Africa, where you're at, and to simply, I don't know, just energetically feel these continents like bridging for a moment.
And you should come here to Africa.
Definitely.
I can see you fitting really nicely here as well.
Awesome. Yeah, we're all waiting for borders to open now, to feel like we have the freedom to move.
But let's keep in touch.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you. Bye, Nalaya.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao. So this was our amazing guest, Nalaya Chakana, a really inspirational person, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I did. Next week, we will be back with another conversation on Friday with a Portuguese actor called Mauro Hermínio, who is a part of a movement called Black Artists Matter. So Mauro will tell us about his journey as a colored man in Portugal, a colored artist in Portugal, and what does this movement, the Black Artists Matter, mean in Portugal, in the world, and in the times we are living now. And as I always say, feel free to connect with us. Feel free to send us recommendations, ideas of next guests. We always have an agenda, so we always have ideas of who to bring. But this program is also to entertain you and to help you and to inspire you. So feel free to reach out, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, and check out the videos, share this video with your people, your friends, your family, whoever needs to learn more about love, intimacy, connection, and have a good one. I'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.